Hello, everybody, and welcome to Remixing Narrative. I'm so excited again for this evening, our conversation about Black history in the 21st century. If you were with us last week, thank you for coming again this week as we have a part two segment as we are discussing what does Black history mean today. Today we have an amazing guest who I'll have introduce herself so you can learn about her age, grade level, all of that good stuff. But what we're doing from last week to this week is a continued series connected with Butler College Prep, where I both so as you're coming in, let us know that you are here. And we're going to dive right into the conversation. Just like last week, if you have questions or comments that you would like to leave, do that. And then we will address them as we are talking. So just to kick it off, we're just going to go right into introduction. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and then we're going to get started.
Alrighty, so my name is Tashaya Hogue. I'm a current senior at Butler College Prep, and I am the age of 17. And thanks for having me today on this podcast.
Yes. So Tashaya. So first, to kick it off, we're going to just start off with what does Black history mean to you? So before we get into 21st century, just personally, what does Black history mean for you?
Yeah, so personally, like Black history to me is just culture and um, just identity. Like Black history, it's like it's more than just slavery. Like although slavery like had a profound impact upon Black history, like Black history is the evolution of my people and cultural values and social values all rolled in one to identify like who I am.
I love it. So how did you personally learn about Black history, especially when you talk about identity? Like how were you first introduced to Black history?
Well, Black history was really introduced through like family. Um, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, so a lot of that wisdom is passed down. A lot of that history, of course, media, as far as like documentaries and movies, and then just books and school, the good parts of it. But yeah, that's pretty much how I first learned about Black history.
So when you talk about your grandparents, what were some of the experiences or things that they share with you?
Okay, so my grandfather, he's from like Alabama, so it was like really southern down there. So like he would always share stories about like him attending school or like the work that he had to put in to like get to where he is today, and like the how important it is to just know where you come from and who your people are. And so yeah.
Love it. We were talking about this last week, just about how many of our family members are from the South. Because, like my dad, he's from Tennessee, and just Chicago in itself, which we'll get to a little bit later about the history that we make in here. But just knowing that so much of our roots come from the South, and so being able to have those conversations with our grandparents is like the real history, right? Not just like in the textbooks. Do
Yeah.
you feel like in school, though? I know you said in school. What would be the kind of lessons that you would learn when you were in school when it came to like was it just in Black History Month or was it kind of like an all year thing?
Well, okay, so I'm still growing up, but like during like elementary days, like it was only like, oh, MLK, okay, we got that off. But when y'all come back, we finna be coloring pictures and let me tell y'all about him, or like Rosa Parks. Like it would be specifically during like just those holidays or during the month of February. It was very like, okay, let's touch on this, and then after that, let's just roll into something else. It was never like really distinguished enough.
So what would you say now? So now that you're in high school, do you feel as if the same lessons are being taught from elementary or in high school? Do you feel like you're getting more in depth or like what would be your experience now with being in high school?
So going to a social justice school is touched on in certain certain classes in depth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not just you know MLK and Rosa Parks. It's like, oh, let me tell y'all who like Nat Turner is. Let me tell y'all who Angela Davis is. Like, it's more in depth, more detailed, and yeah, it's further explained.
So how do you feel like your peers view Black history? So when you're learning this in school, and we'll get to in a second about the different ways you may think they're learning. How do you think they're viewing when you all are having these conversations about people in history?
I feel as though my peers view Black history as a a toot of the own horn. Like, it's real. Like, dang, that's us. That's our people. Like, they really like get into the conversations when we're trying to like express how much we've been through as a people. And yeah, I feel like they view it half and half. Like, they know the significance of it.
Do you think that they have opportunities to learn? 'Cause I think a lot of time when you said it earlier, like Black history isn't just slavery, right? It's everything. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Do you feel as if um, your peers, even yourself, know enough about the good in order to be like, okay, you know what? This is what I represent. I'm not just from slaves. I am like from royalty. I'm from all these different things. Do you feel like there's diversity in the things that you're learning about Black history?
Yes, to an extent. I feel like it's always more to be um taught. So yeah, to an extent. But yeah, we could definitely use some more history lessons of how we're from royalty, because that definitely plays a huge part in like confidence and that pride to carry in our culture.
So, so would you say, for instance, for you, and I could just speak, and people in the chat are saying yes for royalty, Black queens. Um, I think the biggest thing for me, and the reason why I was so excited about this conversation is that I don't know how many people who are watching. I didn't really learn much about Black history, so I went to college, and again, it was because it was a class that I took. It wasn't something that was just like a part of my curriculum and things like that. And I just think about when I found out, like you said, like I'm like, man, that's me. Like this is my history. This is where I come from, and just how much I may have been a little bit more confident and more assured of myself if I learned that like in first grade. You know what I mean? Or like second grade versus when I was in my 20s and I'm just now learning about all these things about history. And so how how do you think the lack of like in-depth type of learn about your history from when you're younger versus now that you're in high school, like even in high school, you're like, yeah, I learned a little bit more earlier with MLK. Like, how do you think that Black history plays a role in like your self-esteem and the way you view yourself? And if we were to learn those things earlier, how that could maybe impact your peers?
Um, if we were to like really know where we like came from at a younger age, I feel like it would play a stronger role in our confidence, because like we be unstoppable. Like, people, I mean, they already can't tell us nothing, but it's like we too confident. Like, we on our high horse, and nobody's gonna knock us down from that. Like, having that knowledge that we're from royalty, like, we untouchable. So I feel like that would be very impactful, learning it at a younger age than to be introduced like in your teen years or earlier on in college.
So let's think now we got Black History 2021, right? So we're currently, as many people are saying, even with this pandemic, we're making history, right? We are a part of that history. But when you think about Black history today, I know we've talked about Rosa Parks, we've talked about, MLK. Do you feel like there's some like history makers today? And it might not be what we traditionally look to be a history maker. Like, who would you say are some people that are actually like making strides today?
The people that go like unnoticed, like the activists that are actually like standing up and like speaking their piece, like that's being untouched by anything that anybody has to say. And the people, I just lost my train of thought.
It's fine.
But the innovators that are like just making history and not like letting people limitate their viewpoints, and also like just the people that's doing stuff like that once upon a time we couldn't even fathom like the thought of us doing. So like the vice president, like her being somebody of like um a minority, like that's making history today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, at this point, for those who are watching, I want to say first, I need you to share this live as we are talking. Also, understand that this is the opportunity for you to pose questions as well. So, this is a free conversation, and as well as we are trying to make sure that we are really hearing her opinion and just the youth's opinion. But again, if you have any questions you want us to pose, go ahead and tell us. And so, I know it's your mama. I'm about to share it right now because I was about to tell you the same thing. So first and foremost, let me tell you this right now. We are just, if we wasn't COVID, we just like sitting on the couch talking. Okay. So I don't want you to, you don't need no notes, girl. You are brilliant. You got what you gonna say. You already know it. This is not no, I ain't got no $1,000,000 to give you. This is just it's just an opportunity for us to just really hear, because I think so many times when we're talking about being able to give the youth their voices, like this is our opportunity to do just that. And so I think as parents, like I'm a parent, I'm a teacher as well. Those who are listening, this just helps us to know like what are you all thinking and what your peers are thinking. So no pressure, girl. No pressure at all. So, again, those who are listening, if you have a question, you got anything, again, brilliant. She is. Stop it. I need you to understand. Like we just talked about earlier, your royalty. This is what this is. This is an opportunity for us to talk about it. So we do have a question that actually, hey, Mr. Prince, he's on here, and so he posed the question again. If you have a question, we'll pull it up, and then we have some more things we've already talked about. We're going to discuss. How do you keep yourself in a strong, confident way, being a queen? Like, how do you make sure others know their Black worth? So what do you do personally that you're able to be confident in who you are in your skin? Because guess what? Not everybody is confident being one Black and secondly a Black woman. So what would you say helps you in your confidence?
Just the thought of evolving, like just being the best version of myself, and like affirmations that I say to myself like daily, because at a point in time I wasn't as confident, and so just knowing that I can be like the best version of myself, or I can reach that my highest potential, it's like a drive, because I know that I'm representing, so
Who do you represent?
everybody that's Black. And my ancestors, my Black, everybody.
You know what? And I think
look like me.
Anyone that looks like you. And the reason I ask that is because I think one of the things that when I think about Black history in 2021, I think that we're getting back to a place of like support Black, right? I think especially when we had like the riots and we had all these different things happen, in which we'll talk about the different killings that are being ongoing. I think especially last year, and I'm praying that it just continues to go forward. It was just this real emphasis of like support Black, love Black, celebrate Black, and understanding that what I do does impact you. You know what I mean? And it matters. And I don't think we've always felt that way. I think a lot of times in our neighborhoods, I don't know if this is what your neighborhood is like. When I was younger, everybody on the block knew each other. You know what I mean? Like neighbors looked out for each other, friends looked out for each other. And I think as over the years, it's kind of become more of like, let me take care of mine, you take care of yours. Do you feel like, that you feel that amongst this time as well, that we are getting back to this, what, let me be excellence because my excellence is going to help the other person?
Most definitely. I'm definitely seeing a change in like that selfishness, or like that, like the jealousy, like antic, like it's definitely like decreasing, because like I see more people our people wanting to help each other, like Black businesses, and like even like, okay, for me, like on Facebook, there's like a whole page like dedicated to Black businesses, like, oh, check this out, or she did this. Like, let me put y'all onto this. Like, I feel like we're very like we're getting back to that point where it's like a community. Let me help me help you. Well, help me help you.
Exactly. What do you feel like you would need? Because you're a singer, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, how does that feel? You are at the end of your high school career. Like, did it go fast? We always tell y'all freshman year, these 4 years go fly. Does it feel like, oh my gosh, like, how do you feel right now? You're at the end of your senior year.
I feel great. I feel great because it's like I see that light. I see that light at the end of the tunnel. It's definitely been some hard points, but as far as just like seeing it through, that's like my main goal here. But slowly but surely, especially during this, pandemic and stuff.
I love it. So, untold stories. And so this what I mean by this is that when we're thinking about Black history, and I think even as parents, educators, those who are watching, what are those like untold things about Black history that you've always been curious about? Like, and you could think about this like, what are some? I know we already hint on like, man, I wish I did know about more about royalty. But I think sometimes when we talk about Black history, and I'm trying as much as possible, even with my own son, to talk about those not so popular people, you know what I mean? Or learning, for one, all the dope Black history that's happened in Chicago, you know? So that would be an example, I would say, untold stories. Like, man, how has Chicago even contributed to Black history? So what would you say are some of those, I call them untold because maybe they're things you've never been, have been taught about. Like, what would be some things you would really want to learn about?
I would say like, okay, so it's like often says like, okay, the Black woman is like the backbone like of the culture. Like, I want to know like how, like, where did that begin from, like the evolution of that. Um,
Mm.
I want to know like the different value, like how did some cultural values come to be, like going to the barbershop for boys, like that's very cultural, like that environment, or the beauty shop for us, like that's very cultural. Like, I want to know where that like came from. Yeah, that's what I would like to know.
You know what? You saying that made me think about how, for me, when I think about down south, like, I don't know if you ever heard of like porch stories. So it's kind of like, where did this come from? And the best conversation is being those organic. Like, I love being around older people, like
Oh
just sitting back and listening, because you're gonna get some laughs. You're gonna be like,
yeah.
oh, did they just say that?
Like,
But that's
yeah.
what you said. Like, I think so many times we take for granted the organic ways that we learn our history. Like, nowhere did you say, well, like, yeah, I would love an extra course in African American lit. It's like, actually, I want to learn like how the woman became the backbone.
Right.
I want to learn how did the culture in the barbershop start. Like, those real,
Right.
like, told real stories, which I think are so important.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I wanted to talk to is a lot of times your generation is looked as this lost generation. And I don't know if you feel that or you've heard that. Even last week, people were asking the boys on here, like, how do we communicate to this generation? Like, why is it so much violence? Why is it so much that? And I think so many times people can um, look at this current generation like, are we losing Black history? Like, are we losing our leaders? And so what would you want to say as far as your generation, first of all, being referred to as a lost generation, and secondly, what do you think we need to do as far as being able to help this new era of children?
Okay, so I feel as though this generation does have like uh different viewpoints as far as like just morally what's significant, and just like not really looking at the bigger picture. So like that I can say, because a lot of things like are that attracts the attention of my generation is just the materialistic things, and like what, oh, that's what they want, okay, nah, that's what I want. Like, it's a lot, I see a lot of that. And what was the second part of the question?
So if we're saying, so even when you're explaining like why this generation might be lost. So my question was, if they are lost, then what is it that you think that your generation needs? Like, what should we be paying more attention to, or what should we do? Because I feel like many times people are saying because this generation is lost, there are no leaders amongst this generation. Like, there's not really the activists that we see in the past. Like, how do we, if we truly believe that, what do you think needs to happen in order to change that?
I just think there needs to just be a sit down where uh I don't know, like both points are like vocally expressed, like as far as like, okay, here's one generation, here's another generation, and like where did we go wrong? Because I feel like it's a lot of miscommunication, or like, oh, like for my generation I feel like it's, oh, you gotta give me respect if I need to give you respect, when it really like just should be, okay, you're an elder, let me respect you. But yeah, I just feel like it's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of minds that aren't mature, a lot of minds that are just swerving. Like they don't really, I don't know, like, yeah, I'm kind of stumped on
No,
that question because
but no,
generation.
but even what you just said, that it made me think about, so something, and you can tell me if this is true or not. I remember growing up, pretty much all of my friends, whether our parents or our, immediate people who raised us went to church. Like, we always went to church. Like, whether it was like with your grandma, whether it was like an older aunt, or it was a granddad, or whatever the case may be. And that whole, I think that there's certain principles and morals that come with being in certain settings, right? So because I went to church with my grandma, and I went also with my mom and dad, because we went to a Catholic school and all that stuff. But going to church is where I actually learned a lot of those principles about like respect for my elders, right? Or being able to like love my neighbor, or being able to, I think some of those like characteristics and morals that we find to be important. What I noticed over the years, and this is just me being a teacher, the foundation and just like the whole foundation of church is is not as strong as it used to be, right? Many of my students, they'll say like, I don't go to church. Like, my mom don't go to church, you know what I mean? And I think that, and again, this isn't about religion when it comes to Black history, but I think that there are some spiritual principles that come with Black history and being a village and really working together. And you don't just care for, like, you don't just automatically learn certain characteristics unless it's what your family is also doing and what those around you are doing. So I think even that whole, like, you got to give me respect, maybe it is a generational thing, but I think also it comes from what is your surrounding teaching you as well. You know what I mean? And so whatever I didn't get at home, I got when I was at church, or I got when I was at whatever setting, and then that just kind of forms who I am as a person. So what would you say? Do you feel like that is an element that might be missing? Like, I don't know necessarily if that's the solution.
That's definitely a significant factor that plays in it, because just like how you said, it like when you ask people, they be like, oh, I don't go to church. It's not like, I feel like with church comes a mindset. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying about like that playing a factor in how this generation has gone lost and rogue.
But I think also what you said is also this idea of I'm gonna go after what I see, right? And so I think what can we do? I think as a community, and this is also, I'm open to whoever's watching as well. What do you think we could do? Because I think it is a mindset. You are only going to aspire to what you see, right? What success looks like to you is what you've been exposed to, and in some ways we can't fault. Heck, we know adults that have a certain mindset because that's just what they grew up around. That's just what it is. So what can we do? I think as we go back to this question of Black history in 2021, like, how can we really, I think, rebuild our community and our schools? And then we'll come back to, when it comes to back to the youth, what do we need to really like teach? So what do you think are some of the things that we may want to start putting in front of our kids because, again, like you said, it's a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the type of things we should be putting in front of our kids to change those mindsets?
I feel as though like just normalizing like different routes of how like their future may end up looking like, just
Mm,
normalizing like different choices or different like societal values, like, oh, getting money, like all money not good money. So I feel like
mm.
just normalizing like different things that'll help um, like lower that money hunger or like need for that lifestyle that they are see that's being imitated and that's not really as realistic.
I like that. I think, like you said, like there ain't nothing wrong with going after money, but understanding the relationship with money, right? Understanding what it should mean.
Hmm.
Um, what do you feel like for you? You know, because you're a part of this generation, and I definitely would not say you lost. But what do you feel like for you? What do you feel like you are, you know, aspiring to be as far as like becoming a history maker? Like, what do you want to do?
Me, I just want to like make people feel comfortable within like their culture, like, and not just people that look like me. Like, I want to be able to like educate other people about our culture to a point where they don't feel like, oh, they're being biased or they're stepping on our toes by the things that they're saying. So I feel like, yeah, that that part.
What you just said earlier, I wanted to pull this up, and so something that I can say, which I believe is so true. We hear this saying, "Black is beautiful," right?
Mhm.
And we talk about that, and so I would love to hear, like, for you, have you always had like this positive image of who you are as a Black girl?
No, no, I haven't always had it. When I was little, I used to like draw pictures of myself, but I would have like yellow hair, and I
Mm,
feel as though I did that because that's what was like um uh projected. Like that was like the normal. Like, oh, on the commercial, I see like a little, like a little white girl just running and her headphone. I'm like, dang, okay, let me visualize myself like that. But it definitely like took some you know learning myself, uh and just evolving my identity to like understand how beautiful my culture and I am.
what do you think are the things that you had to learn, or the things that helped you to learn those things?
Huh?
So, what were the things that helped you to learn that? So,
So
was it just like over time? You just say, like what kept you from now thinking that that is what beautiful is, and you now believe that you are beautiful?
it took a lot of like me and my mama like just having conversations. It took a lot of like just me surrounding myself with like just other people that are confident in their selves, and like just me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to get to that point. What do I need to do? And just my relationship with God, that definitely played a strong part in my confidence. And yeah, and like it be books out here about the Black girl identity, so that definitely
I think that plays a big part because before, like you said, even me growing up, like all this, hair love and all these different like to be honest, even embracing natural hair because like
hmm.
you said, this whole like flowing thing. I remember when I was in high school, I was actually a junior in high school when I decided to go natural. And that was like such a like, what are you doing? Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? And at the time I had really long hair, wrap, all of that. And I started to just grow it out. And I remember this like pull between like, this is what I want to do for myself. This is how I feel. This is what I
Hmm.
love at the time. I loved Lauren Hill and her locks and all of that. I'm like, oh, I started seeing these positive images of natural hair, but it was still this thing of like, no, straight and long is what you want. You know what I mean? And I think it wasn't until now that I get so many compliments about my locks or X, Y, and Z. But growing up, like you said, it was not the thing. Like there wasn't enough images of that. even in books, it wasn't enough images. It was mostly like colorism was a real thing, like light
Right.
skin versus dark. And so
Right.
I think now for us to have more books and more opportunities for the next generation to see that, I could definitely see, like you're saying, more confidence coming about what we look like.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
For
So
sure.
now that we're starting to get to, because I want to make sure we end with some tangible lessons, the teacher.
Okay.
Who do you think is responsible for teaching Black history and teaching these principles that we've been talking about tonight?
Um, like overall, or just like start naming like. Oh, I feel like it should start at home. I feel like you shouldn't like. Oh, I'm gonna just wait till I get to school, learn about my culture. Like I feel like we should educate ourselves, and parents should educate their young. Like I think it should go back to like that community, like that village. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like yeah, they should be responsible for at least like the basics.
And then what do you think responsibility for actual teachers should be when it comes to Black history?
The good, the bad, and the ugly. Not just the good.
Mm-hmm.
Like it should be like touched on all bases.
I agree. I agree. I want to pull this up because I love this comment. Genesis said, realizing
That's my bestie. Period.
realizing other ethnicities could not do what I could do with my hair. That's so true. Look, because they be wanting the thickness. They be trying to get all the extra. That's why they got the extra length and all that because they want it. They want
Yeah,
it.
and
I,
that's what. Oh my bad. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying. And that's
Okay. And like that's how like Black history like impacted me in a way where I was more appreciative and like comfortable because it was just like seeing how we as a people like will put a little twist on anything and then it's a trend like just like that and it'd be like I ain't got to do that because I ain't naturally got that. So yeah, like definitely a boost for me.
it's so funny. I say this often. One of my friends said this. Like when we think about education, when we think about fashion, music, anything,
Mhm.
Black people, we are the standard.
Right.
Like we set the standard. Like we set the fabs. We make the music.
Hmm.
We make it popular. You know what I mean? And so I think that even that is in itself is important because as you just said, like telling the good, bad, and the ugly. I
Hmm.
think if you know more about like all the ways we contribute, you know, like so many musical styles were stolen from Black artists. They just didn't get the credit. You know what I mean? When it comes to science, all these things invented by Black people, but someone else got the credit. You know, I think if we just learn more about what we contribute, then we are able to believe in what we can do. And then I think it goes back to us not feeling like we're second class. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like in order for me to do this, I need to do that. Like, no, actually you are the standard. You are what everybody's trying to be like. So you just continue being
Yeah.
your great way. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So takeaways. So takeaways. What are and right now you got parents' attentions, teacher attention, your peers' attention.
Uh,
What are like top three takeaways that you would want us to know about Black history for the 21st century? What should we be considering and thinking about when we think about Black history now?
um. Okay. So, reposting a post that's contributing, but to an extent, I feel like we could do a little more for those that are just like, oh yeah, I'm for that. Repost. Let me kick my feet up.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Another takeaway. Let me see. Mm,
Well, from what you share, like what would you think are the most important things you would want people to walk away from this conversation?
oh. Okay. Well. With our generation being exposed as the lost generation, I feel as though uh now that I like got some of my peers' attention, like we should really be rethinking that. Like that's not a title we should be proud of. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially being like the new tomorrow, like that generation that's supposed to be, stepping up, taking that, you know. So I feel like we need to rethink that, like change our ways as
Mm-hmm.
far as being that like being lost or being like well, you're an elder, but okay, like actually like try to take away stuff when your elders like talk to you and try to like give you that little wisdom that they're giving off. And the untold stories, I liked that part. Like try to, get some untold stories out of elders if you have some in your life. Yeah.
I love it. I think what I took away from this, and I would love, first of all, let me say thank you for being on and
Thank you for having
holding it down for the ladies and being able to just share your points of view. And again, I want you to know you did amazing. Don't be
Thank you.
nervous,
Thank you.
anything like that. I think what I walked away from this because you constantly talked about, and I know your mom's watching, so kudos to her. You talked about her, just her pouring into you. You talked about your grandparents. You talked about church. You talked about all these different settings, and very few times, and I don't think nothing's wrong with that, you talked about school, right? And I think that it's important that we understand that our kids are sponges in all these different areas, right? And so if we really want to pour into our kids and we want them to be this next generation that's making a difference, we have to think about what are the things that we're pouring into them, right? What are we exposing them to? What are the conversations we're having? I, since this quarantine, my son and my dad's in his 80s. He's older. He has been able to have more time with him, and I think that matters because my son's 9, and even he'll come back like, "Oh, guess what Granddad told me?" Guess whatever. And I think those kind of things are the types of lessons that we can we all freaking out about virtual learning and what our kids are learning, what they're not learning, but they're really going to learn the lessons, the lessons that stuck to you the most, that you talked about the most, were not the traditional lessons. It wasn't in class. It was like, well, I learned this here. I learned it with my grandparents. I do this. And I think we need to really understand that those relationships matter to our kids. And that is what's shaping their identity. That is what's helping them understand who they are. And those are the types of stories that's really going to stick with them in the long run. So let's try to make sure that we are creating those organic times. I know we can't get together as family as normal, but that doesn't mean that we should not realize that those relationships matter. So that is definitely the takeaway that I got this. And just want to show you a few of the comments here. So Jen said again, highly appreciate this lesson. It's important for us as people to understand this. You got a lot of love out here. I just want you to see this. You can see it. People are loving it. I just want you to know that we are all a part of your village. So know that we are pouring into you, and do know that I'm sure some of the gems that you shared tonight is going to be helping those who are on here understand how they can make an impact as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, hopefully you all understand that Black history in the 21st century is just not it's not just in a textbook. So that's pretty much, I think, the major takeaway from this evening. So let's continue to find ways that we can pour into one another, build up our village, and really allow us to not have what we are calling this lost generation. It's our responsibility, right? If they're lost, it's our responsibility to find them. Right? So what are we gonna do to be able to pour it back in? So again, thank you all for tuning in for Remixing Narrative. We will be back next week, and that is it for tonight. Take care.